Hey everybody, Preston Poulter with Pocket Jazz Comics. I'm following up on part 2 of issue 1, my review. I realized yesterday when I was talking about this page here at the end, I referenced that, why does this fight me to not go all the way to the bottom? Alright, I referenced that this had been, that I was looking at the pencils of issue 4 and kind of compare the scenes. So this was the page as done by Laval, and then boom, this here is the page as done by Jake. So you can kind of see, trying to fit it all into the view area there, but that's how Jake's doing it. With the same action, Lilia and Alexei are here, and their fighters are here, and they're kind of split up. One thing I don't quite like about the way it was done, but whatever, I'm not going to fight about it, is it looks like they're kind of part of the formation of fighters, but, whatever, I'm going to let that slide. And then here's the German gunner shooting at him. So that's how it's going to look in issue 4 when we get there. And again, this is a Focke-Wulf 200. But alright, so going back to where we left off, and something else I forgot to point out yesterday, because she peroxides her hair, and if you notice, I try to be very consistent about this. Like the issue 3 cover, I had this revised. So she has platinum blonde hair because she's peroxided it, but she doesn't do the eyebrows, so she'll have dark eyebrows. So that's something you can catch that other people won't, because you listen to this video. Let's see. All right. And here we go. We're going down. Ba-boom. Mouse speed needs to be a little faster for this thing. Alright. Alright, now we introduce our second character, Lydia Litviak. And, I'm sorry, Katya Budanova, who is, as the caption says, also a flight instructor. And I set up this love triangle, which may or may not have been historical. Historically, Lilia was in love with Alexei, as I mentioned yesterday. But I wanted to also explore, gays in the military as a topic. And, we're dealing with young people in a very stressful time, so what's to say that there wasn't some attraction between Katya and Lilia? Certainly interesting to suppose. And it introduces all kind, some nice dramatic conflict, as well as some interesting topics for us to talk about. So Katya is here kind of letting on that, this man is making an advance towards her, and she's just not interested. This, by the way, was the very first page that was done by Diana, Diana Greenhalgh, who you can tell, like, she has a different style. You can tell the difference between the stuff she did and the stuff Walden Wong did. And, Walden's stuff is good, but one of the things that she would do, because Laval was, he was not quite an A-lister. He was, trying to break into the industry. And so Diana would spend more time kind of finishing and correcting his pencils, and so that's why we end up with, if you go back and you look at how Lily looks here, she looks a bit more primitive than, say she does when we get down here. And that's, I really preferred the way Diana was working with Laval. So that was a good switch. I was happy about that. But so Katya is kind of quickly rejecting this male advance, and then she rides off, and then here she is with Lilia, and we have the issue of the coffee thermos, which we know, just on the prior page, she got this coffee thermos filled up from Victor. Actually, not 2 pages ago, Victor was the one who filled this coffee thermos, and then she lost him. And that was a dear friendship to her. And now she's got this artifact of a dead friend that she doesn't want to keep anymore. So she gives it away. And she says, keep it. There can't be a bird with this weighing me down. Which is a line which will come into play later on. That is referencing some Russian folklore. As you will see. Alright, and so she gives it away to Katya, and who's dusting her off from all the bomb dust, and there's kind of a sensuous thing going on here. And we have these men here in the back, which are the ones that are going to be that they are going to be training. And originally in the screenplay, there was kind of more of a sexism on display interaction between those four, but we just cut it for space. So we end up in the air pretty quickly. And by the way, this was just a conversion of my screenplay. I did not actually write a comic script for this. It was just Laval taking my screenplay and doing breakdowns. And I feel he rushed things a bit, particularly now that I'm, I didn't like the way issue 1 turned out in terms of the pace of the story. I thought it was a little rushed. So I, started slowing things down. So if this were me doing it now, I would put more time here, and I would have that interaction between her and the male pilots, because I think, or the male trainees, because I think it's important. But instead, we immediately go to the sky, and again, a little rushed. Here comes this German heavy fighter. I forget what its designation is, but does it say that? No, I don't think she says that. But it's this German heavy fighter, because the Germans had this twin-engine fighter bomber, which ended up being not quite particularly useful. Like, it was too clumsy to be a fighter. It didn't carry enough to be a bomber. It was just kind of an experiment that didn't work, but they did use it for a lot of long-range reconnaissance, which is what I have them doing here. And then we have Lilia giving the bird, which is a very American gesture, but I was writing for an American audience. Like, I could have them do some kind of, Eastern European, telling off symbol, but who would get that? So I have her just kind of giving the finger and holding up the Star of David. A lot of people really liked her reckless courage in these scenes, and just her defiance. But as you can kind of tell reading the thing, this came from her willingness to, her having suffered so many losses that she's just fed up and just won't take it anymore. So she's just kind of lashing out. Essentially, this is Lilia's no good, very bad day kind of thing. But, the days just keep piling up. There's never, necessarily a good day in there. And so that's why she's just always on edge and always ready to just kill things and lash out and take crazy risks. And I was trying to convey that. So hopefully you may have gotten that. But, so she's here antagonizing the enemy, and meanwhile, the man is just ready to bail out. He's like, I've had enough of this stuff. And, she's kind of putting it out there that, if you're not ready to lay down your life for your country, well, you're not ready to be, a Soviet Air Force pilot, which is true. That was very much an expectation. There was not the more American, Western expectation of, you got a 50-50 shot or something, which I think if you were an American bomber pilot, your odds of coming back alive after flying all 24 missions was maybe less than 50-50 or slightly less. But if you were a Soviet, man, particularly at this point in the war, you were just getting creamed. So, anyway, so she brings him back in, and then we have this interplay, which is really cool in the screenplay, and I think the comic was able to capture it pretty well. So, we come back and we land. And then we've got the male pilot who's just horribly freaked out from, his life just being put in danger and the fear that he's just over here retching. And then we have Lilia who's just over it. She's experienced and she's over this stuff. And Katya is looking down at the paper, then tells him that, hey, you know what? We've just gotten orders to be inducted into the Soviet Air Force. And I have this joke here from Lilia, where back here, what she was threatening the German with, not that he could hear her, but, if this Jew had guns, I'd knock you out of the sky. And then, down here, she's like, we've been inducted into the Soviet Air Force. And Leia's question is, they give us guns? I wanted to capture, kind of the feel of the Russian language, but I didn't want everyone's dialogue to be all moose and squirrel. So I did that with Lilia. I made her the outsider. I made her this Polish woman who had only been in the Soviet Union for a handful of years. That's why her Russian was pretty rusty, which is historically that was a change I made. She was actually born in Moscow, so there's no reason historically for her to do that. But in making her from Poland, it kind of bonds her more to the Jewish identity, and to the idea that the Russians invaded Poland, which they did, and so it makes her even more at odds with the Russian government, which her father did historically die, so it's just kind of helping to build that narrative, so that was why I made that change. And here we have her going back. She's visiting her father, while Kaya is visiting... No, I'm sorry. They're both visiting their mother. I got confused. Lydia's father is dead, as we learn later in the issue. He was killed during the Purge. And, both the mothers are kind of not exactly thrilled with the idea that their daughters are about to go fight in the Soviet Air Force. And I'm trying to show kind of a shared, bonded experience that between Katya and Lily, despite the fact that they are different and that they approach things differently, they are still often kind of being put in the same situation. And then we get the induction scene here. So this is a historical figure, Captain Tamara Kazaranova, which, by the way, if you want to know what she looked like, you can Google her. She is a real figure. Kazaranova. Let's see. Her picture should come up. I was doing this earlier today. Yeah, there we go. Tamara Kazaranova. She's on Wikipedia. Here we go. So that is historically what she looked like, which, forgive me for saying, but not a particularly attractive woman. And I think we did a pretty good job of capturing what she looked like here. And she did walk with a cane, which we show in the comic book, because she was injured in a crash, which ended her aviation career, which also kind of fuels the bitterness that she has, because these women get to fly, but she can't do it anymore. So they're coming in, and... Lilia historically, she did try to get into the Soviet Air Force before they allowed women in, and she fudged the amount of flight hours she had. So that's kind of a line here from Captain Kazaranova, suggesting that she has perhaps exaggerated her flight experience. But Lilia's like, look, I'm a flight instructor, and then she's being put in line. And then we start with the oath. And the oath... I was really at odds with how to do this scene. Earlier drafts of the story, I had it was like Full Metal Jacket, where you had, Captain Kazaranova doing the yelling at the recruits and the, you maggots and all that stuff. But I thought the oath later on, when I read this oath was, translated obviously, but this was word for word written by Stalin. Everything in the comic book was in the oath, and you'll see it just keeps going on, and they're having to pledge so much stuff of just their life, whatever. They're pledging their soul to the Soviet Union, and now we've got these flashbacks during, kind of juxtaposed with the oath, so we can see their individual history and their individual aspirations as they're just pledging away everything to the state. And to me, that was all we really needed to see of boot camp. So. Here we go. So, I, a citizen of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, joining the ranks of the Workers' and Peasants' Red Army, do hereby take the oath of allegiance and do solemnly vow. And as we got, we go back to Katya, who I switched her nationality. She was Russian, but Budunova could also be a Ukrainian name. And I wanted to, talk more about the Ukrainian and Holodomor. So I made her this Ukrainian farm girl. And then later on in Guinevere and the Divinity Factor, I made her a country girl too. Look, I'm from Texas. I like country girls. What can I say? But here she is, kind of slopping pigs and whatnot. And she gets this early experience with flying when there's a biplane flying overhead, and she gets to interact and with the pilot and all that. Meanwhile, we've got this oath to be an honest, brave, disciplined, and vigilant fighter to guard strictly all military and state secrets, to obey implicitly all army regulations and orders of my commanders, commissars, and superiors. And now we go to Lilia, and we go to the Purge, and her as a little girl. Meanwhile, the oath is, I vow to study the duties of a soldier consistently to safeguard army and national property in every way possible. Imagine taking an oath like that. And to be true to my people, my Soviet motherland, and the workers and peasants' government to my last breath. Which we arranged that the last breath would correspond with the hanged man, which was her father, and kind of this brutal treatment of her by the guard. Now, I'm sure most of you have seen the variant cover of issue 1, which features the kind of this scene done. Here, let me see if I can find it for you. Well, everybody took a small break there to get a glass of water, and while I was doing that, I just got notification that the music video for Guinevere and the Divinity Factory is done. So I'll get to show that with you in the next day or two. Pretty excited. Sunk a lot of money into it. Hope you like it. All right, so here we go. Picking back up. So yeah, I wanted to show that this was the page in the comic, and then this was the variant cover that Laval did, which I love this cover. This is one of my favorite pieces of comic book artwork, and I have there are actually two originals, I suppose. So he did it originally in pencil, which went to a Kickstarter backer, and then he traced over that, or at least redid it in ballpoint pen, and that one's hanging on my wall. So, and Diana Greenhalgh just sold the inks to this. But this image right here was the first collaboration between what became the issue 2 art team, which was Laval and Davis on pencils, Diana on inks, and then Blonde on colors. And I think they did a great job. So anyway, so then picking back up with our story here we are. And now coming down, and now we come back, and now we understand why Lilia harbors so much rage towards her own government. And then this sets up the dynamic, which is going to be, you're going to see all the way through White Lily, which is Lilia is upset and running and just, she just wants to fight, and Katya is running after her and attempting to try and make things better. And then we introduce two other notable female aviators, Tamara and Maria Kutsunova. Let's see. Tamara Believa and Maria Kutsunova, those were the four women who were transferred to the formerly all-male squadron of the 415th. So they're kind of introducing here to each other. And then, boom, I believe that's Race's looking out, and she sees that fighters have landed. And so she tells all the women, and the women rush out excitedly. And then I don't know if anybody noticed, but like Lilia's out there, she loves planes, she loves this stuff, she's out there and she's thanking people, and she's got her salute up, which the Soviet salute, by the way, is over here, which Laval kind of captured, but it's not quite on the head, it's over here. But everyone is ignoring her, and so she's just hanging out with her salute going, and no one is paying her any attention, and so she just kind of eventually lets it down. Like, it's the Captain Baranova, who will become a significant figure in issue 2 and going forward, is giving the salute to Captain Kazaranova, and Lily's just in the background like, what? No one's paying me any attention. And now we introduce Alexei, who will become very significant to Lilia. And in fact, their relationship starts right here, where Alexei is kind of lecturing these women on what the Yak-1 plane is like, and I decided that I wanted the planes, because this is about aviation, to be as much, to basically be just like characters. So each one kind of gets its introduction. So here we're, when I was showing you the images from issue 4, that's the Focke-Wulf 200. I throw a lot of planes at you, and we get a lot of technical specs on it. That was a 4-engine transport. It was used as an airliner. It was the very first plane to fly nonstop from Berlin to New York. And then when the war came along, it was converted to war use. It was very rare to have a 4-engine plane in the German forces. But here we're introducing the Yak-1 fighter. And as we see, it only has one gun, it has wooden wings, and Kai is looking down like the wheels, the wheels are mismatched. It was kind of a mess. Which, someone, I wouldn't have thought of this, but someone said it's like the Millennium Falcon. Like Lilia is like Han Solo in the Millennium Falcon. I'm like, yeah, you know what? I guess I kind of like that. But it's kind of a nice contrast to fighting, the Germans and their very elite, war machine, BF 109s and Focke-Wulf 190s, and she's here in this Yak-1 with its one gun and mismatched wheels and so on. But we go up, and this was a historical event. She did beat her dogfight instructor on the very first try. And I just sent off my new print order. I'm sold enough White Lily issues to reorder issue 1, And we're swapping out these ads, so now this is going to be an ad for Guinevere and the Divinity Factory. So, not that you should buy another issue just so you'll see a different ad, but just so you know. And now here we got this, the dogfight between her and Alexei, and historically she did beat her dogfight instructor the first time, and so what I changed was to make Alexei that dogfight instructor to start their relationship right here earlier so they could get more screen time. And after that, she also would like to do these like low altitude victory loops right over the aerodrome, just like we kind of saw Maverick with a high speed flyby. She loved to do that as well, except she was real and Maverick from Top Gun was not. So. And then boom, Lydia triumphant, and this is one of my favorite images of Lydia because it's one of the only times she's just experiencing joy, and it's like, kick your ass, because this is like the first time she's realizing she can do it, and she really is as good as she's thought she is, and she's had this feeling like if people just gave me a chance, I could prove myself, and now she's done it. And Captain Kazarinova's jealous. And also, it's a bit of insubordination with the high-speed flyby. She's like, I'm going to bust you. But Alexei realizes the talent that she's displayed. So he comes down and he's like, hey, shut up. And I wanted to show that who is he to tell her to shut up? She's a captain. But at the same time, this is wartime. He's a wartime aviator, and he's a man. And he ain't having none of this woman, like, bossing over what is basically an undiscovered gem in terms of an aviator. Like Alexei sees the talent that Lily possesses, and he's not going to have anyone screw with that. And it's another kind of message I want to put forward, that even in these kind of political circumstances, merit still matters. So, and then we end here with Katya and Lilia deciding, hey, they want to go to the bar. And if you've already read issue 2, well, you know where this is going to end up. So. Anyway, that's my review of issue 1. There is currently a Kickstarter going on for the sketch cover of issue 2 in anticipation of issue 3, which is going to be launched next month. And there's a link for all that down in the description. And if you sign up for my mailing list at PocketJacksComics.com, you will get this PDF for free. Thank you. Take care.